Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a world of shag carpeting, avocado green appliances, and rotary phones that actually stayed attached to the wall. We're talking about the 1970s, specifically what every American home had that has now completely vanished. The gadgets, the furniture, the little everyday objects that made a house feel like home back then. Things so ordinary at the time that nobody thought to photograph them, yet so specific to that era that seeing one now stops you in your tracks. Before we dive in, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of the internet where nostalgia and curiosity meet. And thank you for being here. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I know someone out there is watching at 2 a.m, wrapped in a blanket, pretending this counts as productivity. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, maybe turn on a fan for that soft, white noise, and settle in. Really settle in. Because tonight we're exploring a world where telephones had cords, entertainment centres were made of actual wood, and every kitchen had at least 3 things that plugged into the wall and whipped, mixed, or toasted something. Have you ever wondered what it really felt like to flip through a physical TV guide to plan your entire week? How did families actually use those massive console stereos that doubled as furniture? What was it like when your curtains, your couch, and your wallpaper all had different patterns, and somehow it all worked? Did people really cover their furniture in plastic? And what happened to all those peculiar little gadgets that seemed so essential at the time but disappeared without anyone noticing? And just like that, it is 1973. The television is warming up. Someone down the street is mowing their lawn with a push mower that sounds like summer itself. The smell of fresh coffee drifts through the kitchen, and you are home. The telephone hangs on the kitchen wall, avocado green or harvest gold, its coiled cord stretching like a lazy spring across the counter. It is heavy, solid, permanent, the kind of object that stays in one place and demands you come to it. When it rings, the sound fills the entire house, a mechanical jangle that cuts through conversation and sends someone scrambling to answer before the caller gives up. You cannot carry this phone with you. You cannot silence it or send it to voicemail. When it rings, you move toward it, sometimes mid-meal, sometimes with wet hands from the dishes, sometimes abandoning whatever you are doing in another room. The cord stretches only so far, maybe 6 feet if you're lucky, so you stand there anchored to that spot on the wall, twisting the cord around your finger as you talk. Dialing requires patience. You slip your finger into the hole above the number you want, drag the dial clockwise until it hits the metal stop, then release and wait as it rotates back with a series of clicks. Long-distance numbers take time. You count the rotations, listen to the mechanical rhythm, and hope you do not slip and have to start over. There is no redial button. There is no contact list. You either know the number by heart or you look it up in the phone book, that thick directory with tissue-thin pages that lives in the drawer beneath the phone. The receiver is smooth and cool against your ear, heavier than it looks, curved to fit perfectly against your face. The mouthpiece is close to your mouth, designed for clarity, for making sure the person on the other end can hear you, even if the connection crackles with static. You talk for 10 minutes, 20, sometimes an hour, leaning against the wall or perched on the edge of a kitchen chair, the cord spiraling into tighter and tighter coils as you shift positions. When someone else needs to use the phone, you have to finish your call. There is no call waiting, no second, line, just one phone, one conversation at a time, and the knowledge that anyone walking through the kitchen can hear every word you say. Privacy is a luxury that requires closing the door to the hallway and hoping the cord reaches that far. The phone book that sits beneath it is a community directory, alphabetized and updated every year. You flip through it looking for the number of the hardware store, the dentist, your friend's house. Everything you need is in there, hundreds of pages of small print, organized by last name. each entry a reminder that finding someone used to require knowing where they lived, or at least what their parents' names were. When the phone is not ringing, it simply waits, silent, patient. A fixture on the wall as reliable as the clock above the stove. It does not buzz with notifications. It does not light up with messages. It just hangs there, ready, tethered to the world by a single cable that runs through the wall and connects your kitchen to every other kitchen in town. And when you finally hang up, pressing the receiver back into its cradle with a soft click, the house returns to whatever quiet it held before. The kind of quiet that feels earned, complete, unhurried. The television set is not something you carry from room to room. It is a piece of furniture, a low wooden cabinet with stubby legs and a screen that curves gently at the edges. It sits in the living room like a shrine, and the whole family arranges themselves around it. Turning it on requires walking across the room, twisting a knob with a satisfying click, and waiting while the screen glows to life. The cabinet is made of real wood, or at least something meant to look like real wood, with a finish that gleams under the lamplight. The grain runs in smooth lines across the front panel, which hides the speaker behind a fabric grille. On top of the console sit framed photos, a small plant, maybe a decorative ashtray. It is not just a television, it is a display, a centerpiece, a statement that your family has arrived. The screen takes a moment to wake up. First comes a small white dot in the center, glowing faintly, then expanding outward as the picture tube warms. The image blooms slowly, colors bleeding into focus, sound crackling through the speaker as the volume settles. You do not turn on the television and immediately see a picture. You wait for it, and the waiting feels like part of the ritual. There are two knobs on the front. One controls the channels, a dial you turn with a firm twist, clicking through the stations one by one. UHF, VHF, 3 networks, maybe a local channel or two, and a lot of static in between. The other knob controls the volume, and beneath it are smaller dials for brightness, contrast, tint, each one requiring minor adjustments to get the picture just right. Sometimes the colours drift, faces turning slightly green or purple, and someone has to get up and fiddle with the knobs until everything looks normal again. The screen is smaller than you remember, 14 inches, maybe 19 if your family splurged. But in the dim light of the living room it feels enormous. Everyone gathers around it, the couch facing it directly, chairs angled toward it, the whole room oriented around that glowing rectangle. You sit on the floor sometimes, cross-legged on the shag carpet, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from the back of the set. Changing the channel means getting up. There is no remote control, at least not in most homes, so whoever is closest to the set becomes the designated channel changer. You twist the dial, hear it click through the numbers, watch the picture dissolve into static and then reform into a new channel. If someone complains, you twist it again. If the picture rolls or flickers, you smack the side of the cabinet gently, a universal fix that works more often than it should. When the television is off, the screen goes dark and slightly reflective, showing a dim ghost of the room behind you. The cabinet stands there quietly, waiting for evening, for the family to gather again, for the next show to begin. It is furniture and entertainment in one, a fixture so permanent that rearranging the living room means working around it. And at night, after everyone has gone to bed, you can still feel the warmth coming off the wood, the faint smell of dust and electricity, the sense that the television has been working hard and has finally earned its rest. The TV guide arrives every week, thin as a pamphlet but thick with purpose. It sits on the coffee table, dog-eared and marked up, a roadmap for the entire week's entertainment. You flip through it on Sunday afternoon, circling shows in pen, planning your evenings like a general plotting strategy. The cover features a celebrity, someone currently starring in a popular show, photographed in bright colours with a headline teasing an exclusive interview inside. You recognise the face immediately. Everyone does. The magazine is small enough to hold in one hand, its pages glossy and thin, printed in columns so narrow you have to squint slightly to read them. Inside, the week unfolds in grids. Monday through Sunday, each day divided into half-hour blocks, every channel listed down the left side. The listings are dense, abbreviated, packed with information. You scan the rows looking for your favourite shows, checking the times, making sure you do not miss anything. There are codes in parentheses, R for repeat, CC for closed captioning, little symbols that indicate a movie or a special event. You use a pen to circle what matters. Monday at 8, your show. Wednesday at 7:30, your mother's programme. Friday night, a movie you've been waiting for. The circles overlap, cross out, sometimes collide when two shows air at the same time and someone has to choose. There is no DVR, no way to record and watch later unless you own one of those bulky VCRs, and even then you can only tape one thing at a time. So the TV guide becomes a negotiation, a family document that everyone contributes to. The magazine also includes articles, interviews with actors, behind-the-scenes stories about upcoming episodes, gossip about cast changes and contract disputes. You read these while you wait, filling in the gaps between shows, learning which stars are feuding and which ones are getting their own spin-offs. It feels like insider information, a connection to the world inside the television. The TV guide lives on the coffee table, within arm's reach of the couch, so anyone can grab it and settle a debate about what time something starts. It gets folded back on itself, pages creased, corners bent. By the end of the week it looks exhausted, ink smudged and wrinkled. A battle-worn guide that has served its purpose. When the new issue arrives, you toss the old one into the recycling or save it. Some people keep stacks of them, a record of what they watched, what mattered, what filled those evenings. The new guide is pristine, unmarked, full of possibility. You open it carefully, smooth it flat on the table and begin again. There is something comforting about this ritual, the predictability of it, the way the week is mapped out in advance, the way you know exactly what is coming and when. Television is not an endless scroll of options, it is a schedule, a rhythm, a series of appointments you keep with your favourite characters. And on Sunday afternoon, with the TV guide open in front of you and a pen in your hand, you feel ready. The week is planned. The shows are circled. The family knows what is on. All that is left is to wait for Monday evening, when the television warms up and the week begins. The can opener is bolted to the kitchen wall, a sturdy metal contraption with a turning handle and a magnetic arm that grips the lid once it is cut free. It does not require batteries or electricity. It simply works, the same way it has worked for years, opening cans of soup, vegetables, tuna, anything that comes sealed in metal. You position the can beneath the blade, fitting the lip of the lid into the small gap between the cutting wheel and the gear. Then you squeeze the handles together, feeling them lock into place with a firm click. The blade punctures the metal, and you begin to turn the handle slowly, steadily, watching as the cutting wheel bites into the lid and moves around the rim. The motion is satisfying. The handle turns smoothly, the gears working with mechanical precision, the can rotating as the blade carves a clean circle. You can feel the resistance, the slight tug as the metal separates, and then the moment when the blade completes its circuit and the lid comes free. The magnet holds it in place, dangling there, and you lift the opener away, careful not to let the sharp edge touch your fingers. The can opener is always in the same spot, mounted just above the counter, within easy reach of the stove. It is painted to match the kitchen, Avocado, green or harvest gold, or sometimes just plain white. A functional tool that blends into the background until you need it. There is no drawer to dig through, no searching for the right gadget. It is always there, always ready, a permanent fixture on the wall. Opening a can becomes a small ritual. You hear the squeak of the handle, the scrape of metal on metal, the faint tick, tick, tick as the gears turn. It is a sound that means dinner is being prepared, that something is about to be cooked, that the kitchen is alive with activity. Your mother uses it without thinking, her hands moving automatically, turning the handle with the ease of someone who has done this 1,000 times. When the lid comes off, you dump the contents into a pot or a bowl, hearing the wet plop of soup or the soft tumble of green beans. The can itself goes into the trash, but sometimes you rinse it first, saving it for some other purpose, a container for screws or coins or pencils. The lid, still clinging to the magnet, gets pried off and tossed separately, its sharp edge a reminder to be careful. The wall-mounted can opener lasts for years, decades even. It does not break down. It does not wear out. It simply keeps working, day after day, can after can, a small piece of kitchen machinery that never asks for attention and never fails. You take it for granted, the way you take for granted the faucet or the light switch, until one day you visit a friend's house and realise they do not have one, and you wonder how they manage. It is a tool that belongs to an era when things were built to stay in place, to be used and reused without fuss. And standing at the counter, turning that handle, feeling the gears catch and the blade bite, you are connected to every other person who has ever opened a can this way, in kitchens all over the country, in homes that look just like yours. The carpet is everywhere, thick and soft and impossibly textured, swirling in shades of orange, brown, gold, sometimes green. It covers the living room, the bedrooms, even the basement, a plush landscape that feels luxurious underfoot. You sink into it slightly when you walk, and it holds the shape of your footprints for a moment before bouncing back. The fibres are long, longer than any carpet you'll see in later decades, standing upright in dense tufts that catch the light and shadow in waves. When you run your hand across it, the texture changes, the fibres bending under your palm, revealing darker or lighter shades depending on which way you brush them. It is almost like petting an animal, the way it responds to touch, the way it shifts and settles. Vacuuming shag carpet is an event. The vacuum cleaner struggles through it, the brush roll catching on the long fibres, the motor straining as it tries to pull dirt from deep within the pile. You have to go slowly, making multiple passes over the same spot, and even then you're never quite sure you've gotten everything. Sometimes you use a rake, a special tool with long plastic tines designed specifically for shag, combing through the carpet to lift the fibres and loosen the debris trapped underneath. The carpet shows everything: footprints, furniture marks, the path you take from the couch to the kitchen, worn into a faint trail that never quite disappears. When you move a chair or a table, the indentations remain, 4 deep craters that take days to fluff back up. You learn to place furniture carefully, to commit to its position, because rearranging means revealing the ghost of where things used to be. But there is something wonderful about it too. The carpet is warm, soft, forgiving. You can sit on it for hours sprawled out in front of the television and never feel uncomfortable. Children play on it, rolling toy cars through the fibres, building forts and stretching out for naps. The carpet absorbs sound, muffles footsteps, turns the living room into a quieter, cosier space. The colours are bold, unapologetically 70s, chosen to make a statement. Orange carpets glow like autumn leaves. Brown carpets feel earthy, grounded. Gold carpets shimmer faintly under the lamps, catching the light in a way that makes the whole room feel warmer. These are not neutral tones. These are colours that announce themselves, that define the room, that make visitors pause in the doorway and take it all in. And there is the smell. New shag carpet has a distinct scent, slightly chemical, slightly sweet. The smell of synthetic fibres and backing glue. It fades over time, replaced by the smells of the house itself, cooking and pets, and the faint mustiness that comes from moisture trapped deep in the pile. But in the beginning, when the carpet is first installed, the whole house smells like possibility, like newness, like the future. You learn to live with shag carpet. You learn its quirks, its demands, the way it requires care and attention. You learn to love it too, the way it feels under bare feet, the way it turns the floor into something almost alive. And years later, when trends shift and shag falls out of favour, when people rip it out and replace it with hardwood or low-pile neutrals, you will remember it fondly. The softness, the colour, the way it made every room feel just a little bit more like home. The kitchen is a symphony of green. The refrigerator is green. The stove is green. The dishwasher, the toaster, the coffee maker, all variations of avocado, harvest gold, or burnt orange. It is the palette of the decade, earthy and bold, a deliberate choice that makes the kitchen feel coordinated, intentional, modern. The refrigerator stands tall against the wall, its smooth green surface gleaming under the fluorescent lights. It hums quietly, a steady background noise that you stop noticing after a while. The handle is chrome, cool and slightly textured, and when you pull the door open, the interior light blinks on, illuminating shelves packed with milk, juice, leftovers in Tupperware, a drawer of vegetables that may or may not still be fresh. The door itself holds condiments, butter, eggs, in a special moulded tray. Everything has its place. The stove matches perfectly, same shade of avocado, same chrome details. The burners are electric coils that glow orange when they heat up, and the oven door opens with a heavy creak, revealing a dark interior that smells faintly of previous meals. The clock on the stove is analog. 2 small knobs you twist to set the time and the timer, and it ticks quietly, counting down the minutes until dinner is ready. Even the smaller appliances follow the theme. The toaster is avocado green, its sides smooth and slightly rounded, with a lever that you push down to start the toasting process. You watch through the slots as the bread darkens, wait for the pop that signals it is done, then grab the slices quickly before they cool. The coffee maker is green too, a percolator that burbles and hisses on the counter, filling the kitchen with the rich smell of brewing coffee every morning. This coordination is intentional. Appliances in the 1970s are not meant to blend into the background. They are meant to be seen, to be part of the design, to contribute to the overall aesthetic of the room. Avocado green is earthy, natural, a colour that suggests freshness and health, even if the meals being prepared are heavy on canned vegetables and casseroles. The dishwasher, tucked under the counter, is green on the outside with a control panel of buttons and dials. Loading it requires strategy. Plates in the bottom rack, cups and glasses on top, silverware in the little basket that never quite holds everything. You add detergent, twist the dial to the correct setting, and listen as it fills with water. The swishing and spraying sounds muffled but audible through the door. These appliances are built to last. They are heavy, solid, constructed with metal and real components, not the lightweight plastic that will dominate later, decades. When something breaks, you call a repairman, and he arrives with a toolbox and a manual, taking the appliance apart on your kitchen floor and replacing whatever needs replacing. You do not throw things away and buy new ones. You fix them. You keep them running. And there is something comforting about the uniformity. Walking into the kitchen, seeing everything match, seeing the green tie the room together, makes it feel complete, finished, like the family who lives here has made thoughtful choices, has invested in quality, has created a space that reflects the times they are living in. Years from now, avocado green will become a punchline, a symbol of outdated taste, something people mock or nostalgically collect. But right now, in this kitchen, it is simply normal. It is the colour of progress, of modernity, of a family moving forward into the future with appliances that work, and a kitchen that feels like the heart of the home. The record player sits on a shelf or a dedicated stand, its turntable open like an invitation. Beside it, rows of vinyl albums lean against each other in wooden crates or wire racks, their covers displaying bold fonts and colourful artwork. You flip through them the way you might flip through a photo album, each one holding not just music but memories. The covers are large, 12 inches square, big enough to study in detail. You see the faces of musicians, the elaborate illustrations, the typography that defines each era and genre. Some covers are simple, just a name and a photo. Others are complex gatefold designs that open like a book, revealing lyrics, liner notes, additional artwork. You pull out an album, hold it carefully by the edges, and slide the vinyl from its paper sleeve. The record itself is smooth and black, grooved in tight spirals that catch the light. You hold it up, checking for scratches or dust, then place it gently on the turntable. The spindle fits through the centre hole and you flick the switch that starts the platter spinning. The tone arm lifts automatically, or you lift it yourself, moving it carefully over the record until it hovers above the outer edge. Then you lower it, and the needle finds the groove with a soft crackle. There is a moment of anticipation, a second of hiss and pop before the music starts. Then it blooms, filling the room with sound that feels warmer, richer, more present than anything that will come from a digital speaker. You hear the bass, the drums, the vocals, each instrument distinct and layered. You hear the imperfections too, the occasional skip or scratch, the surface noise that reminds you this is a physical object, not a stream of data. Listening to a record is an active process. You cannot skip to your favourite song with a press of a button. You have to lift the needle and move it carefully, risking a scratch if you're not precise. You cannot shuffle the album or create a playlist. You listen to side A, then you flip it over and listen to side B in the order the artist intended. It requires patience, attention, a willingness to sit with the music instead of treating it as background noise. The record collection grows over time. You buy albums at the store, flipping through bins of new releases and discounted classics. You receive them as gifts, birthdays and holidays marked by the appearance of a new record wrapped in paper. You trade with friends, borrowing and lending, discovering new artists through recommendations and word of mouth. Each album is an investment, something you will keep and play and eventually pass down. The records themselves require care. You store them upright, never stacked, to avoid warping. You keep them in their sleeves to protect them from dust and scratches. You clean them occasionally, using a special brush or cloth, wiping in the direction of the grooves. You learn to handle them gently, to treat them with the respect they deserve, because once a record is damaged, it is damaged forever. And there is something ritualistic about the whole experience. Choosing an album, sliding it from the shelf, removing it from the sleeve, placing it on the turntable, lowering the needle, sitting down to listen. It is deliberate, intentional, a way of marking time and creating space for music to matter. Years later, when CDs and digital files make vinyl obsolete, when the record player gets packed away in the attic and the albums gather dust, you will remember this. The feel of the cardboard in your hands, the crackle before the music starts, the way an entire album could define an afternoon, a mood, a moment. and you will understand that something was lost when music became invisible, when it stopped being something you could hold. The encyclopedias line an entire shelf, a matched set of heavy volumes bound in faux leather or textured fabric. They're arranged alphabetically, A through Z, a fortress of knowledge that your parents invested in because education matters. When you need to know something, anything, you pull down the correct volume, run your finger down the index and read. Each volume is thick, dense with information. The page is thin and slightly translucent. The type is small, printed in 2 columns, with occasional illustrations or photographs breaking up the text. The spine of each book displays its letter or range of letters, gold embossing that catches the light, making the set look impressive and important on the shelf. You approach the encyclopedias with a question. What is the capital of Peru? How does photosynthesis work? Who was the 3rd president? You scan the spines, find the correct volume, and pull it down carefully. It is heavier than it looks, solid and substantial in your hands. You flip to the index in the back, or sometimes you just page through, scanning the entries until you find what you're looking for. The articles are thorough, written in formal educational language that assumes you're serious about learning. They do not simplify or condense. They explain, define, explore, sometimes going into more detail than you actually need. You read about Lima, about chlorophyll, about Thomas Jefferson, and along the way you discover other things, related topics, cross-references, tangents that lead you deeper into the volume. This is how research works in the 1970s. There is no search engine, no instant results, just books, pages, indexes, and the patience to find what you need. You take notes on lined paper, copying information by hand, sometimes drawing diagrams or charts to help you remember. It is slow, methodical, and oddly satisfying. The encyclopedias are not just for school assignments, they are for curiosity, for settling debates, for answering the random questions that come up during dinner. What year did man land on the moon? How tall is Mount Everest? What is the population of China? Someone gets up, pulls down the correct volume and reads the answer aloud. The encyclopedia is the final word, the authoritative source, the end of the argument. Your parents bought this set as an investment, paying for it in installments, storing it prominently in the living room or den where everyone can see it. It is a symbol of aspiration, a sign that this family values knowledge, that they're giving their children the tools they need to succeed. The salesman who sold it to them promised that these books would last a lifetime, that they would never go out of date, that they contained everything a person could possibly need to know. Of course, that is not quite true. Encyclopedias go out of date the moment they are printed. New discoveries are made. Borders change. Leaders rise and fall. But updates come slowly, in the form of yearbooks, thin annual volumes that your parents buy to keep the set current. These yearbooks summarize the major events of the year, adding them to the collection, extending its usefulness. And there is something comforting about the presence of these books, the way they sit on the shelf, waiting, the way they represent knowledge, stability, the idea that the answers are there if you are willing to look for them. You grow up surrounded by them, and even if you do not use them every day, you know they are there, a resource you can turn to, a safety net for your curiosity. The plant hangers dangle from ceiling hooks in the living room, the kitchen, sometimes the bathroom, woven from thick cream-coloured cord in intricate knotted patterns. They hold spider plants, ferns, trailing philodendrons, greenery that cascades down in gentle waves. It is a decade obsessed with bringing nature indoors, and macrame is the bridge. The cord is rough and textured, usually made of cotton or jute, twisted and knotted in patterns that look complicated but follow a specific rhythm. Square knots, half hitches, spirals that twist down the length of the hanger, all combining to create a piece that is both functional and decorative. At the top, the cords come together in a loop that slips over the ceiling hook. At the bottom, they cradle a pot, holding it suspended in midair. The plants themselves thrive in these hangers. Spider plants send out long shoots that dangle below the pot, each one ending in a cluster of baby plants. Ferns unfurl their fronds, soft and green, filling the space around them. Philodendrons trail down toward the floor, their heart-shaped leaves catching the light. The plants seem to appreciate the elevation, the way they can spread out without crowding the furniture, the way they can reach toward the windows. Macrame is everywhere in the 1970s, not just plant hangers but wall hangings, curtains, room dividers, even jewellery and clothing. It is a craft that feels accessible, something you can learn from a book or a friend sitting at the kitchen table with a length of cord and a lot of patience. The patterns are rhythmic, meditative, the kind of work that keeps your hands busy while your mind wanders. Making a plant hanger takes time. You cut the cord to the right length, usually much longer than you think you will need, then fold it in half and knot it onto a ring, or directly onto itself to form the loop. Then you begin the pattern, tying knots at regular intervals, checking the spacing, making sure everything is even. Your fingers learn the motions, the way to pull the cord tight, the way to keep the tension consistent so the finished piece hangs straight. When it is done, you hang it from a ceiling hook, threading the loop over the metal and letting the hanger drop. Then you nestle a potted plant into the cradle at the bottom, adjusting the cord so the pot sits level. You step back and admire it, the way it floats in space, the way the plant seems to hover, the way it adds life and colour to a corner that was previously empty. The plant hangers become part of the landscape of the house. You navigate around them, ducking slightly as you pass through doorways brushing against the trailing leaves as you walk by. They sway gently when the air conditioner kicks on, or when someone opens a window, the plants moving in a slow dance that makes the room feel alive. Caring for the plants requires creativity. You water them carefully, tilting the pot slightly so the excess can drain into a saucer or the sink. Sometimes you take the whole hanger down, carrying it to the bathtub to give the plant a thorough watering, then hanging it back up once it has stopped dripping. The macrame cord absorbs moisture, darkening slightly when wet, then drying back to its original cream colour. And there is something satisfying about the combination of natural and handmade. The organic shapes of the plants contrasted with the geometric precision of the knots. The green of the leaves against the neutral tone of the cord. The way something functional, a way to hold a plant, becomes something beautiful. A piece of art that hangs in your home and makes it feel warmer, more welcoming, more like a place where things grow. The Tupperware fills an entire cabinet, a rainbow of pastel containers with tight sealing lids that burp when pressed. There are bowls in graduated sizes, rectangular containers for sandwiches, divided trays for leftovers, even a cake carrier with a domed lid. It is practical, colourful, and oddly satisfying to organise. The containers are made of lightweight plastic, smooth and slightly flexible, in shades of mint green, pale yellow, soft orange, baby blue. Each one has a corresponding lid, and the lids seal with a system that feels almost magical. You press down on one edge, and air escapes with a soft whoosh, creating a vacuum that keeps the contents fresh. The burp, as it is called, is the sound of freshness being locked in, a small but satisfying confirmation that you've done it right. Your mother organises the Tupperware with care. The containers nest inside each other, largest to smallest, and the lids stack in a separate pile or fit together in a specific order. There is a logic to it, a system that makes sense once you learn it, but that can be frustrating if you are in a hurry and cannot find the right lid for the container you're holding. Tupperware is not just for storing leftovers, It is for everything. Flour and sugar in the pantry, kept fresh and safe from bugs. Cookies and crackers, sealed so they do not go stale. Cut vegetables in the fridge, ready for snacking or cooking. Sandwiches packed for school lunches, each one pressed flat in a rectangular container that fits perfectly in a lunchbox. The containers are versatile, durable, designed to last for years. There is also a social element to Tupperware. Your mother attends Tupperware parties, gatherings at a neighbour's house where a saleswoman demonstrates the products, showing off their features, their versatility, their value. The women sit in the living room, drinking coffee or iced tea, watching as the saleswoman burps the lids, stacks the bowls, fills the containers with water to prove they do not leak. Then they place their orders, choosing the pieces they need, the colours they like, arranging payment plans if necessary. When the order arrives, your mother unpacks it like Christmas morning, admiring each piece, checking the lids to make sure they fit, organising everything in the cabinet. She shows you how to burp the lids properly, pressing firmly until you hear the sound, then testing the seal by trying to lift the container by the lid alone. If it holds, the seal is good. If it falls, you need to try again. The Tupperware gets used daily. Leftovers from dinner go into containers, labelled with masking tape and a marker if your mother is organised, or just placed in the fridge and identified by memory if she is not. The containers come out the next day for lunch, reheated on the stove or eaten cold, then washed and returned to the cabinet, ready for the next meal. Some pieces become legendary, the cake carrier that goes to every potluck and party, protecting layer cakes and sheet cakes from damage during transport. The divided tray that holds a full meal, each section keeping the food separate and organised. The small round containers, perfect for a single serving of applesauce or pudding that show up in lunchboxes day after day. And the colours make it fun. These soft pastels brighten the kitchen, turning food storage into something cheerful, something that feels less like a chore and more like a small pleasure. You open the cabinet and see a riot of colour, each container a little promise that meals can be saved, extended, enjoyed again later. Over time, the Tupperware becomes stained, the plastic absorbing the colours and smells of the food it holds. Spaghetti sauce leaves an orange tint. Curry turns a container faintly yellow. But even stained, the Tupperware keeps working, keeps sealing, keeps burping, a testament to the quality and durability that made it famous. The fondue set sits in the dining room cabinet, a ceramic pot with a metal stand and tiny forks with colour-coded handles. It comes out for special occasions, dinner parties, holidays, moments when melted cheese or chocolate feels like an event. The whole family gathers around the table, spearing bread cubes and fruit, laughing as someone loses their piece in the molten centre. The pot itself is usually glazed in bright colours, orange or yellow or avocado green, with a smooth finish that catches the candlelight. Beneath it sits the stand, a metal frame that holds a small canister of fuel, sterno or gel alcohol, something that burns with a steady blue flame hot enough to keep the contents bubbling. You light it carefully with a match, watching as the flame settles into a consistent glow. Preparing fondue is a process. For cheese fondue, your mother grates Swiss and Gruyere, melts them slowly with white wine and a touch of garlic, stirring constantly to keep the mixture smooth. The smell fills the kitchen, rich and sharp, making everyone's mouth water. For chocolate fondue, she melts dark chocolate with cream, creating a glossy pool that looks almost too good to eat. The pots get carried to the table with great ceremony, placed carefully on their stands, the flames adjusted until the temperature is just right. Each person gets a fondue fork, long and thin with 2 prongs and a coloured tip. The colours matter because once you dip your bread or fruit, you need to remember which fork is yours. You spear a cube of bread, dunk it into the cheese, swirl it around until it is coated, then lift it carefully, letting the excess drip back into the pot. The cheese stretches in long strings, and you have to twirl the fork or blow on it gently to break the strand before bringing it to your mouth. The first bite is always the best. The cheese is hot, creamy, perfectly seasoned, clinging to the bread in thick layers. You taste the wine, the garlic, the nuttiness of the cheese itself. It is rich, indulgent, the kind of food that feels celebratory just by existing. Everyone eats slowly, savouring each bite, reaching back into the pot for more. There are rules, unwritten but understood. If you lose your bread in the cheese, you have to kiss the person next to you, or sing a song, or do some other silly forfeit. It happens more often than you would think, the bread slipping off the fork and sinking into the molten cheese, disappearing beneath the surface. When it does, everyone laughs, and the guilty party accepts their fate with good humour. The fondue set transforms dinner into an event. There is no serving and clearing, no rush to finish. Everyone stays at the table, gathered around the pot, talking and laughing, taking turns dipping and eating. Time slows down. The meal stretches out, becoming less about the food and more about the togetherness, the shared experience of reaching into the same pot, the easy intimacy of it. Chocolate fondue comes out for dessert and the mood shifts again. Strawberries, banana slices, marshmallows, pound cake cubes, all arranged on a platter waiting to be dipped. The chocolate is silky and dark, coating the fruit in a glossy shell. You bite into a strawberry and taste the contrast, the tartness of the fruit against the sweetness of the chocolate, the cool flesh against the warm coating. Cleaning the fondue set is less fun than using it. The cheese hardens, the chocolate solidifies, and the pot has to be soaked and scrubbed to remove the residue. But even that becomes part of the ritual, part of the price you pay for an evening that felt special, that brought everyone together in a way that regular dinners do not. And when the fondue set goes back into the cabinet, clean and dry and waiting for the next occasion, it carries with it the memory of laughter, of stretched cheese and dipped strawberries, of an evening when dinner was not just food, but an experience. The telephone table is a small piece of furniture designed for a single purpose. It holds the phone, a notepad, a cup of pens, maybe a small lamp. There is often a little seat attached, upholstered in vinyl or wicker, just big enough to perch on while you talk. It is practical, compact, and surprisingly charming. The table stands in the hallway or near the kitchen, positioned wherever the phone jack emerges from the wall. The surface is small, just wide enough for the telephone and a few essentials, and there is usually a shelf underneath for storing phone books or directories. The whole piece is designed with intention, every inch serving a function, nothing wasted. The seat is the defining feature. It is built into the table, a padded cushion on a swivel base, or a simple bench with spindle legs. The vinyl is usually a solid colour, harvest gold or burnt orange, smooth and easy to wipe clean. The wicker versions creak slightly when you sit down, a gentle complaint that becomes part of the experience. The seat is not meant for lounging, it is meant for phone calls, for perching while you dial and talk, for the 10 or 15 minutes you might spend on the line before your back starts to ache and you shift your weight. The notepad sits within easy reach, spiral bound with a cardboard back, filled with pages covered in phone numbers, messages, doodles made while waiting on hold, while you are out printed at the top, with boxes to check and lines to fill in. Your mother uses it religiously, jotting down names and numbers, tearing off sheets to leave on the counter for your father, keeping track of who called and when and what they wanted. The cup of pens is essential. Ballpoint pens in black or blue, some of them freebies from the bank or the insurance company, printed with logos and phone numbers. They click on and off and you test them on the edge of the notepad, scribbling circles until the ink flows. There is always at least one pen that does not work, but no one throws it away, so it stays in the cup getting picked up and discarded over and over again. The lamp, if there is one, is small and adjustable, with a gooseneck that bends to direct light onto the notepad. It helps in the evening when the hallway's dim and you need to read a phone number or write down a message. The bulb is low wattage, casting a warm circle of light that feels cosy, intimate, a little island of brightness in the dark. Sitting at the telephone table feels purposeful. You're not just talking on the phone. You're engaged in the act of communication, stationed at your post, ready to take notes or look up numbers, fully present in the conversation. The table makes it feel official, important, like the telephone is not just an appliance, but a portal to the wider world. The table also becomes a gathering place for small things. Keys get tossed onto it when you come in the door. Mail gets sorted there, bills and letters separated into piles. Coins accumulate in a small dish, nickels and dimes waiting to be used for payphones or parking meters. The table collects the debris of daily life, becoming a catch-all for anything that needs a temporary home. Over time, the telephone table becomes a piece of the house's identity. You know exactly where it is, even in the dark. You can walk to it without thinking, reach for the phone without looking, settle onto the seat with the ease of long familiarity. It is furniture that serves a function, but it is also a marker of routine, a small constant in a world that keeps changing. And when you move away, when you visit years later and see the telephone table still standing in the same spot, still holding the phone and the notepad and the cup of pens, it feels like coming home. Because that table, small and simple and perfectly designed for its purpose, is a reminder of a time when communication was rooted in place, when the telephone was not something you carried but something you came to, and when a dedicated piece of furniture made that ritual feel significant. The mirrors cover entire walls, floor to ceiling, reflecting light and making small rooms feel twice as large. They are framed in brass or wood, sometimes etched with geometric patterns, and they turn hallways into galleries, living room into ballrooms. It is design choice that feels glamorous, ambitious, slightly vagus. You see yourself constantly, walking down the hallway, passing through the living room, standing in the dining room. Your reflection follows you, multiplied and repeated. At first it is disconcerting, catching glimpses of yourself from unexpected angles, seeing your profile or the back of your head. But eventually you stop noticing, and the mirrors become part of the landscape, just another surface, another element of the room. The mirrors are installed in sections, large panels fit together with thin seams barely visible unless you look closely. They are mounted directly to the wall, held in place with clips or adhesive, covering everything from the baseboards to the ceiling. The effect is dramatic, transformative, turning ordinary rooms into spaces that feel larger, brighter, more open. Light bounces off the mirrors in unpredictable ways. A lamp in one corner of the room becomes two lamps, its reflection glowing on the opposite wall. Sunlight streaming through a window multiplies, spreading across the mirrored surface and filling the room with a diffused brightness. At night, candles and table lamps create warm pools of light that seem to float in the glass, doubling the ambience. The mirrors also reflect the room itself, creating strange loops of perspective. You see the couch and its reflection, the television and its twin, the family sitting together and their ghostly duplicates on the opposite wall. It is like living inside a kaleidoscope, where every object has a mirror image, where depth becomes ambiguous and space feels infinite. Cleaning the mirrors is an ongoing battle. Fingerprints appear constantly, especially if you have children who cannot resist touching the glass. Dust settles on the surface, visible in the light streaming through the windows. Smudges and streaks show up no matter how carefully you wipe, and you learn to clean at an angle, checking the reflection for spots you missed. But the mirrors serve a purpose beyond decoration. They make small rooms feel spacious, turning cramped hallways into grand entryways, narrow living rooms into airy lounges. They create the illusion of depth, suggesting that the room continues beyond its actual walls, that there is more space than there really is. It is a trick, but it works, and it transforms the way you experience the house. The mirrors also become part of social life. Guests notice them immediately, pausing in the doorway to take in the effect, sometimes doing a double take when they catch their own reflection. Parties feel larger, more crowded, because the mirrors multiply the guests, filling the room with twice as many people as are actually there. Conversations happen in reflection, people talking to mirror images, gesturing at themselves in the glass. And there is something glamorous about it, something that feels aspirational and stylish. The mirrors suggest sophistication, a family that cares about design, that wants their home to feel special, elevated, different from the houses around them. They are a statement, bold and unapologetic, a choice that says we're not afraid to be noticed. Years later, when tastes change and mirrors fall out of favour, when people start covering them with wallpaper or replacing them with painted drywall, you will remember what it was like to live surrounded by your own reflection, the way the light bounced and multiplied, the way the rooms felt larger than they were, the way you could see yourself from every angle, constantly reminded of your presence in the space. And you will realise that those mirrors, for all their strangeness, made the house feel alive, filled with light and movement and the endless dance of reflection. The ceiling is textured, covered in a spray of white bumps that look like frozen popcorn or cottage cheese. It hides imperfections, absorbs sound, and gives every room a strange tactile quality. You lie on your back and stare up at it, tracing patterns in the texture, imagining landscapes and faces in the chaos. The texture is applied with a spray gun, blown onto the ceiling in layers that dry into irregular peaks and valleys. It is thick, slightly rough, and if you reach up and touch it, your fingers come away dusty. The bumps cast tiny shadows, creating a sense of depth that changes as the light shifts throughout the day. In the morning, with sunlight streaming through the windows, the ceiling looks almost three-dimensional. At night, under lamplight, it flattens into a matte white expanse. Popcorn ceilings are everywhere in the 1970s. Every new house has them. Every apartment, every remodelled room. They're practical, covering up cracks and uneven surfaces, making it unnecessary to sand and smooth the drywall underneath. They also have acoustic properties, dampening sound, making rooms feel quieter, more enclosed. But mostly they are fashionable, a design trend that everyone follows without questioning. You grow up staring at these ceilings, lying in bed at night unable to sleep. You let your eyes wander across the texture, finding shapes in the randomness. That cluster of bumps looks like a mountain range. That smooth patch looks like a lake. That shadow looks like a face, or maybe an animal, or maybe just a shadow. Your mind fills in the details, creating stories and landscapes from nothing. The texture also collects dust. Over time, the white surface turns greyish, especially in corners and along the edges where air circulation is poor. Cobwebs stretch between the peaks, visible only when the light hits them just right. Cleaning is nearly impossible. You cannot wipe the ceiling without disturbing the texture, and vacuuming requires a special attachment and a lot of patience. Mostly people just leave it, accepting the gradual accumulation of dust as part of life. Popcorn ceilings have a strange reputation. Some people love them, appreciating the way they hide flaws and add character to a room. Others hate them, finding the texture ugly, dated, a symbol of cheap construction and low-rent aesthetics. But regardless of opinion, They are ubiquitous, a shared experience for anyone who lives in a house built during this era. There's also a practical downside. The texture is fragile. Bumping it with a ladder or a piece of furniture can knock off chunks, leaving bare spots that are difficult to repair. Water damage is even worse. A leak in the roof causes the texture to sag and darken, eventually falling away in wet clumps that leave stains on the carpet below. Repairing a damaged popcorn ceiling is more trouble than it is worth, so most people just live with the imperfections. But for children, the ceilings are a source of fascination. You lie on the floor staring up, letting your imagination run wild. You count the bumps, trying to calculate how many there are in the entire room. You wonder who invented this texture, and why, and whether they ever imagined that millions of people would spend hours staring at it, finding meaning in the random spray of plaster. And at night, when the house is quiet and the lights are out, the popcorn ceiling becomes a companion. You can barely see it in the darkness, just a sense of texture above you, a reminder that you are enclosed, protected, safe. The bumps and valleys blur together, forming a soft, indistinct surface that hovers over you like a cloud, and you fall asleep beneath it, knowing that tomorrow it will still be there, unchanged, waiting for you to find new patterns in its chaos. The walls are lined with wood panelling, thin sheets of laminate printed to look like oak or walnut, grooved to suggest individual planks. Covers the den, the basement, sometimes the garage, giving those spaces a warm cabin-like feel. The panelling is dark, absorbent, a backdrop for framed photos and mounted clocks. The panels come in 4x8 sheets, installed directly over the drywall or studs, held in place with nails or adhesive. The seams run vertically, and each panel has grooves cut into it at regular intervals, creating the illusion that the wall is made of individual boards. The surface is smooth, slightly glossy, printed with a wood grain pattern that repeats every few feet if you look closely enough. The colour is usually dark, honey oak, medium walnut, sometimes a reddish mahogany, all shades that absorb light and make the room feel smaller, cosier, more enclosed. It is intentional, a design choice meant to create a den-like atmosphere, a retreat from the brighter, more open spaces in the rest of the house. The den is where your father watches television, where the family gathers for movie nights, where the air is slightly cooler and the light is softer. The panelling shows everything: nail holes from hanging pictures, scratches from moving furniture, water stains from leaks or spills. Over time, the surface accumulates the marks of daily life, each one telling a small story. The gouge near the floor where someone dropped a toolbox, the faded rectangle where a calendar hung for years, the sticky residue from tape or adhesive hooks that never quite came off. But the panelling is forgiving in its own way. The dark colour hides dirt and scuffs. The grooves create visual interest, breaking up the surface so your eye does not focus on any one spot for too long. And the wood grain, artificial though it is, gives the room a sense of warmth, a feeling that this is a space meant for relaxation, for comfort, for being yourself. Decorating a room with wood panelling requires thought. Light-coloured furniture stands out, creating contrast, preventing the room from feeling too dark. Lamps are essential, multiple sources of light scattered around the space, pushing back against the shadows. Framed photos and artwork need to be chosen carefully, their colours and subjects complementing the brown tones of the panelling rather than clashing with them. The den becomes a masculine space, whether intentionally or not. The dark walls suggest a study, a library, a place for serious activities like reading or working or watching the news. Your father claims it as his domain, filling it with his books, his records, his comfortable chair. The rest of the family is welcome, of course, but everyone understands that this room belongs to him, in a way that the living room or kitchen do not. And there is something grounding about the panelling, the way it wraps around you, creating a sense of enclosure, of being inside something rather than just in a room. The way the dark walls make the television screen seem brighter, more vivid. The way the grooves and grain create texture, giving the eye something to rest on when the mind wanders. Years later, when design trends shift and wood panelling becomes a symbol of outdated taste, when people tear it down and replace it with drywall painted in neutral tones, you will remember what it felt like to sit in that panelled den, the dim light, the warm tones, the sense of being in a space that was separate from the rest of the house, a retreat that felt protected, private, permanent, and you will realise that the panelling, for all its artificiality, created something real, a room that felt like home. The Lazy Susan sits in the centre of the dining table, a rotating tray that makes passing condiments effortless. It holds salt and pepper shakers, a sugar bowl, bottles of ketchup and mustard, maybe a ceramic napkin holder. You give it a gentle spin and watch everything glide past, each item within easy reach. The base is usually wood or plastic, mounted on ball bearings that allow it to spin smoothly, almost silently. The surface is flat, divided into sections or left open, and it rotates with just the lightest touch. You press your finger against the edge and push, and the whole thing turns, bringing distant items closer, sending near items away, a slow carousel of condiments and necessities. The Lazy Susan solves a problem. No more asking someone to pass the salt. No more reaching across the table, stretching awkwardly, risking a spill. Everything you need is right there, just to spin away. Your mother loves it, appreciating the convenience, the way it keeps the table organised and functional. Your father uses it constantly, rotating it between bites, reaching for ketchup, then mustard, then the pepper, never having to ask for help. The items on the Lazy Susan become permanent residents. The salt and pepper shakers, a matched set, ceramic or glass, filled and refilled as needed. The sugar bowl with its little spoon, used for coffee and tea. The bottle of ketchup, always Heinz with a slightly crusty cap. The mustard, yellow and predictable. Sometimes there is a small bottle of hot sauce, or a dish of butter pats, or a jar of relish, depending on the meal. At dinner, the Lazy Susan becomes the centre of activity. Someone spins it to grab the salt, and everyone watches as it rotates, tracking their own needs, waiting for their chance. It is almost hypnotic, the slow turn, the way the items glide past like horses on a merry-go-round. Children love it, spinning it too fast, sending the condiments flying in circles until someone tells them to stop. The Lazy Susan also serves a social function. It keeps the table tidy, preventing clutter, giving everyone a shared resource that no one has to guard or hoard. It encourages sharing, cooperation, a sense that the table is a communal space where everyone's needs are considered, and it creates a focal point, a centre around which the meal revolves, both literally and figuratively. Cleaning the Lazy Susan is straightforward. You lift it off the table, wipe down the surface. Check the bearings to make sure they still spin smoothly. The items on it get wiped or washed, then returned to their places, each one finding its spot in the rotation. The whole process takes just a few minutes, and then the Lazy Susan is ready for the next meal, the next spin, the next family gathered around the table. There is something satisfying about the mechanics of it, the way the bearings allow such smooth rotation, the way a small push creates momentum that carries the tray around. It is simple engineering, practical and elegant, solving a problem with minimal fuss. And it works, day after day, meal after meal, never breaking, never failing, just spinning. And there is something comforting about its presence. The way it sits there, always in the same spot, always ready. the way it holds the essentials, the small things that make a meal complete, the way it turns, bringing what you need within reach, making the table feel like a place where everything is available, where no one is too far away, where a simple spin can bring you closer to what you want. The chairs are sculptural, moulded plastic or fiberglass in bold colours, curved into sweeping S-shapes that look more like art than furniture. They are lightweight, stackable, modern, a statement that your home embraces the future. Sitting in one feels like sitting in a spaceship designed by someone who cared deeply about aesthetics. The shape is continuous, one flowing curve that starts at the floor, rises to form the seat, then curves back to create the backrest. There are no legs in the traditional sense, just the single piece of moulded material, bent and shaped to support your weight. The plastic is smooth, slightly glossy, and it flexes slightly when you sit down, conforming to your body in a way that feels surprisingly comfortable. The colours are bold, bright orange, cherry red, sunny yellow, electric blue, all shades that demand attention, that refuse to blend into the background. Some chairs are transparent, made of clear acrylic that seems to disappear, leaving you floating in mid-air. Others are opaque, solid blocks of colour that anchor the room and define its palette. Either way, they're impossible to ignore. Sitting in an S-shaped chair takes a moment to adjust. The seat is lower than a traditional chair, close to the ground, and the backrest tilts at an angle that encourages you to lean back, to relax, to let the curve support you. Once you settle in, it is surprisingly comfortable. The plastic moulding to your spine, the angle just right for lounging or watching television. But getting up requires effort, a bit of momentum to push yourself out of the curve, a reminder that modern design sometimes prioritizes form over convenience. The chairs are conversation pieces. Guests notice them immediately, commenting on the colour, the shape, the sheer boldness of them. Some people love them, admiring the design, running their hands over the smooth curves, asking where you bought them. Others are sceptical, unsure about the comfort, the durability, the practicality of chairs that look like they belong in a museum rather than a living room. But everyone has an opinion. The chairs are also practical in unexpected ways. They stack, nesting together into a compact pile that takes up minimal space, perfect for storing extras when you're not entertaining. They are lightweight, easy to move from room to room, easy to rearrange when you want to change the layout, and they are durable, the moulded plastic resistant to scratches and dents, holding up to years of use without showing much wear. Children love the chairs. They climb on them, drag them across the floor, turn them into toys, spaceships or race cars or thrones for imaginary kingdoms. The smooth curves are perfect for sliding, and the bold colours make them feel playful, fun, a piece of furniture that does not take itself too seriously. Adults appreciate them too for different reasons, for the way they make the room feel modern, current, aligned with the design trends of the decade. The chairs also photograph well. They show up in magazines and catalogues, styled with shag carpeting and geometric wallpaper, part of the visual language of the 1970s. They represent a moment in design history, a time when plastic was new and exciting, when curves replaced straight lines, when colour was embraced rather than feared. They are icons, recognizable even decades later, symbols of an era that believed the future would be bright, bold, and beautifully designed. And sitting in one now, feeling the curve support your back, seeing the colour catch the light, you understand the appeal. These chairs are not just functional. They are optimistic, forward-thinking, a reminder that furniture can be more than just a place to sit. It can be art, expression, a declaration that your home is a place where beauty and function coexist, where the future is welcome, where the ordinary becomes extraordinary with just a little imagination. The cocktail cart sits in the corner of the living room, a wheeled brass and glass structure loaded with bottles, mixers, tumblers, and tiny stirring sticks. It is ready at a moment's notice, a mobile bar that rolls out for guests for Friday nights, for any occasion that calls for something stronger than soda. The cart has 2 or 3 tiers, each one a shelf of glass or mirrored surface, held in place by a brass frame that gleams under the light. The wheels are small but sturdy, rolling smoothly over carpet or hardwood, making the cart easy to move from room to room. The top tier holds the bottles, a curated selection of liquor lined up like soldiers: whiskey, vodka, gin, rum, maybe a bottle of vermouth or bitters. The middle tier holds mixers, tonic water, club soda, bottles of cola and ginger ale. The bottom tier holds glasses, rocks glasses and highball glasses, each one sparkling clean and ready to use. The bottles are beautiful, many of them designed as much for display as for drinking. The whiskey comes in a rectangular bottle with embossed lettering. The vodka is in a tall, slender bottle that catches the light. The gin has a label with ornate typography and a picture of a juniper berry. Even when the bottles are half empty, they look elegant, sophisticated, a sign that this household knows how to entertain. Your father tends the bar. He is the one who restocks the bottles, who arranges the glasses, who knows how to make a proper martini or an old-fashioned or a whiskey sour. When guests arrive, he rolls the cart into the centre of the room, positions it near the seating area, and asks what everyone is drinking. The ritual is familiar, comforting, a way of marking the transition from ordinary evening to special occasion. Making drinks from the cart is an art. Your father measures carefully, pouring liquor over ice, adding mixers, stirring or shaking as needed. He uses a jigger for accuracy, a small metal, cup marked with measurements, ensuring that every drink is balanced, consistent. He garnishes with lemon twists or olives, or maraschino cherries, depending on the drink, presenting each one with a flourish, a small performance that makes the guest feel valued. The cart also serves as decoration. Even when it is not in use, it sits in the corner looking glamorous, the bottles catching the light, the brass gleaming, the glasses arranged in perfect rows. It suggests sophistication, leisure, a household that has time for pleasures beyond the necessities of daily life. It is aspirational, a piece of furniture that says we have arrived, we are living well, we know how to enjoy ourselves. During parties, the cart becomes a focal point. People gather around it, mixing their own drinks, chatting as they pour, using it as a social hub. The act of making a drink becomes an excuse to move, to stand, to step away from a conversation and regroup before rejoining. The cart facilitates mingling, keeping people mobile, preventing the party from settling into static clusters. Restocking the cart is a regular task. Your father makes trips to the liquor store, replacing empty bottles, adding new ones when a guest mentions a preference. The mixers run out faster than the liquor, and they get replaced weekly. Fresh bottles chilled in the refrigerator and moved to the cart as needed. The glasses get washed and polished, returned to their places, kept spotless and ready. And there is something elegant about the whole setup. The way the cart holds everything you need in one place, mobile and organised. The way the brass and glass catch the light, creating reflections and sparkles that make the room feel more festive. The way the bottles stand in formation, a promise that whatever the occasion, whatever the mood, there is something here to suit it, to celebrate it, to make the evening feel just a little bit special. The Sears catalogue arrives in the mail, thick as a phone book, its glossy pages filled with everything you could possibly need. You flip through it on rainy afternoons, circling items in pen, dog-earing pages, dreaming about new furniture, new clothes, new tools. It is shopping, entertainment, and aspiration all bound together. The catalogue is massive, hundreds of pages long, divided into sections by category. Clothing in the front, men's and women's and children's, modelled by people with perfect hair and wide smiles. Furniture and home goods in the middle, room after room of coordinated sets, everything matching, everything styled. Tools and automotive supplies toward the back, pages of wrenches and socket sets and mysterious devices whose purpose you can only guess. And sprinkled throughout, toys, electronics, jewellery, appliances, kitchen gadgets, everything you could want and many things you did not know existed. The pages are glossy, printed in full colour, the ink slightly waxy to the touch. The photographs are crisp, professionally shot, each product displayed to its best advantage. The descriptions are brief but detailed, listing features, dimensions, available colours, item numbers. At the bottom of each page, prices are printed in bold, some marked with sale stickers or special offer banners. You use the catalogue for planning. Christmas is still months away, but you start circling toys, marking the things you hope to find under the tree. Your mother flips through the clothing section, considering new dresses or coats, checking the sizes, comparing prices. Your father spends time in the tool section, studying the specifications of power drills and lawn mowers, imagining the projects he could complete with the right equipment. Ordering from the catalogue is a process. You fill out an order form, carefully copying the item numbers, quantities, sizes and colours. You double-check the prices, add them up, include tax and shipping. Then you mail the form with a cheque or money order, or sometimes you call the toll-free number, reading the information to an operator who types it into a computer somewhere far away. Then you wait, weeks sometimes, for the package to arrive. The catalogue also serves as a reference. When you need to know what something costs, you look it up. When you're trying to describe an object to someone, you flip to the right page and point. When you're bored, you read it like a magazine, studying the products, the models, the little glimpses of life contained in each photograph. It is a window into possibility, a reminder that the world is full of things you do not yet own, things that could make your life easier, better, more complete. Children use the catalogue differently. They sprawl on the floor, turning pages slowly, studying the toys with intense focus. They make lists, ranking their favourites, debating with siblings about which items are best. They cut out pictures, creating collages or wish lists, imagining the day when these toys will be theirs. The catalogue becomes part of childhood, a ritual of longing and anticipation that builds over months. The catalogue is also a social document. It shows you what is fashionable, what is modern, what other families are buying. You see the latest styles in furniture, the newest appliances, the trends in home decor. You compare your own home to the rooms in the catalogue, noticing the differences, wondering if you should update, if you should try to keep up. The catalogue sets a standard, a benchmark of what a well-furnished home should look like. And when the new catalogue arrives, the old one does not get thrown away immediately. It stays in the house for a while, tucked beside the couch or on a shelf, still useful for reference, still occasionally consulted. Eventually it gets recycled or used for craft projects, its pages cut up and repurposed. But for a time, it was the centre of your shopping universe, a book of dreams made tangible, a reminder that anything you wanted was just an order form away. The Jello moulds hang on the kitchen wall or sit in a drawer, metal shapes in fluted rings, bunt forms, even fish and stars. Jello salads are a staple, wobbly creations studded with fruit, vegetables, sometimes miniature marshmallows. The moulds give them shape, turn them into centerpieces, edible sculptures that shimmer under the dining room light. The moulds are made of aluminum or copper-coloured metal, lightweight and durable. with intricate designs pressed into their surfaces. The fluted ring is the most common, a circular shape with scalloped edges that creates a crown-like appearance when the Jello is unmoulded. The bunch shape is similar but deeper, with a hollow centre, perfect for filling with fruit cocktail or whipped cream once the Jello is set. Making a Jello salad is a process. You start with the powder, a small box of Jello in lime or strawberry or orange, mixing it with boiling water and stirring until the crystals dissolve completely. Then you add cold water, or sometimes a can of crushed pineapple with the juice, or a bottle of ginger ale for fizz. You pour a thin layer into the bottom of the mould and place it in the refrigerator to set partially, just until it is tacky to the touch. Then comes the fun part, the additions. You press halved grapes or mandarin orange segments into the partially set Jello, arranging them in a pattern, creating a design that will show through when the mould is flipped. Or you stir in shredded carrots, diced celery, miniature marshmallows, turning the Jello into something that is part dessert, part salad, part mystery. You pour the rest of the Jello mixture over the additions, filling the mould to the top, then return it to the refrigerator to set completely, which takes several hours or overnight. You cover it with plastic wrap or aluminum foil, making sure nothing touches the surface, and you wait, checking it occasionally, testing the firmness with a gentle poke. Unmoulding the Jello is the moment of truth. You fill a large bowl or the sink with warm water, not too hot, and dip the mould in for a few seconds, letting the heat loosen the Jello from the sides. Then you place a plate over the top of the mould, hold them together firmly, and flip the whole thing over. You give the mould a gentle shake, a slight tap, and if you are lucky, the Jello releases with a soft sucking sound, sliding out onto the plate in one perfect piece. The unmoulded Jello wobbles, shimmering in the light, translucent and jewel-like. The design is revealed, the fruit suspended in geometric patterns, the fluted edges catching shadows, the whole thing looking like something from a fancy restaurant even though it is made from a box and a can and whatever was in the refrigerator. Jello salads are served at every gathering, potlucks and holidays, Sunday dinners and church socials. They sit on the table alongside casseroles and roasts, a sweet or savoury side dish that no one quite knows how to categorise. Some people love them scraping the plate clean, savouring the texture and the flavour. Others politely decline, put off by the combination of ingredients, the way vegetables and fruit and marshmallows can all end up in the same wobbly mass. But they are undeniably festive. They add colour to the table, bright greens and reds and oranges that catch the eye. They show effort, the time and care required to mix and mould and unmould, and they represent a certain creativity, a willingness to experiment, to try combinations that would never occur to later generations. The moulds themselves become treasured tools, passed down from mothers to daughters, collected at garage sales and thrift stores. Some families have a dozen moulds in different shapes, each one reserved for a specific occasion or a specific recipe. And even when Jello salads fall out of fashion, when the moulds are packed away in boxes and forgotten, they remain a vivid memory of a time when gelatin was considered not just a dessert but a way to showcase your culinary ambition. The afghan is draped across the back of the couch, a crocheted blanket in stripes of brown, orange, yellow, cream. It is handmade, probably by your grandmother or your mother, each stitch a small act of care. You pull it over yourself on cool evenings, feeling the texture of the yarn, the slight weight of it, the warmth that goes beyond temperature. The pattern is simple but deliberate, rows of granny squares joined together, or long stripes that ripple across the surface in waves of colour. The yarn is acrylic, practical and washable, chosen for durability rather than luxury. It has a slight sheen to it, a synthetic quality that catches the light, and a texture that is soft without being plush, substantial without being heavy. Making an afghan takes time, months sometimes of sitting in front of the television or at the kitchen table, the crochet hook moving in a steady rhythm, pulling loops of yarn through other loops, building the fabric row by row. The work is meditative, repetitive, the kind of task that keeps hands busy while the mind wanders or focuses on something else entirely. Your grandmother worked on hers in the evenings, the yarn trailing from a bag at her feet, the partially finished blanket growing slowly in her lap. The colours are distinctly 1970s, earth tones that match the decor, the shag carpet, the wood panelling, the avocado appliances. Brown, orange, gold, cream, sometimes a touch of rust or olive green. The stripes are wide or narrow, alternating in a pattern or arranged randomly, each afghan unique, a reflection of the maker's choices and available yarn. When the afghan is finished, it gets gifted or claimed, draped over the back of the couch where it waits for someone to need it. And someone always does. On chilly evenings when the furnace has not quite kicked in yet, during late-night television marathons when the house has gone quiet and still, when you're feeling under the weather curled up on the couch with a mug of tea and a box of tissues. You pull the afghan over your legs, tucking it around yourself, and the warmth is immediate. Not just physical warmth, though it provides that too, but a deeper comfort, the sense of being cared for. Every stitch was made by someone who knew you, who thought of you, who wanted you to be warm. The afghan carries that intention, woven into the yarn itself. The blanket also bears the marks of use, a snag where someone's watch caught the yarn, a slightly faded stripe where sunlight hit it through the window, a small stain from a spilled drink, mostly washed out but still faintly visible if you know where to look. These imperfections do not diminish it. They add to its story, proof that it has been used and loved and needed. Children claim afghans as forts, draping them over furniture to create caves and hideouts. Pets curl up on them, kneading the yarn with their paws, shedding fur that gets tangled in the stitches. Teenagers pull them over, their heads while studying, creating a cocoon of warmth and focus. The afghan adapts to every need, every age, every season. And when it needs washing, you handle it carefully, using cold water and a gentle cycle, laying it flat to dry so it does not stretch or lose its shape. When it comes out clean, the colours slightly brighter, the yarn slightly softer, you fold it and return it to its place on the couch, where it waits for the next person who needs it. The afghan is not just a blanket. It is a presence, a piece of someone's effort and love made tangible. And on the nights when you pull it over yourself, feeling the weight of it settle, you're wrapped not just in yarn but in care, in continuity, in the knowledge that someone took the time to make something just for you. The slide projector sits in the hall closet, a boxy machine with a circular carousel that holds dozens of tiny plastic frame photos. When the family gathers for a slideshow, someone pulls down the white screen, dims the lights, and clicks through vacation photos, birthdays, graduations. Each slide glows on the screen for a moment before clicking forward into memory. The projector is heavy, substantial, made of metal and glaze with a handle on top for carrying. It comes out of the closet carefully, cradled in both hands, and gets set up on a table or a stack of books positioned at just the right height and distance from the screen. The power cord snakes across the floor, taped down with masking tape so no one trips over it in the dark. The carousel sits on top of the projector, a round plastic tray with slots around the edge, each one holding a single slide. The slides are small, 2-inch squares of transparency mounted in thin cardboard or plastic frames, each one numbered or labelled with a date and location. You load them carefully, making sure they are facing the right direction, upside down and backward so they project correctly, a counterintuitive arrangement that takes practice to Remember, the screen is mounted on a tripod or hung from a hook on the wall, a white fabric surface that rolls up when not in use and pulls down for viewing. It hangs flat and taut, slightly reflective, ready to receive the projected images. In the dim light it glows faintly, a blank canvas waiting to be filled. Someone turns off the lamps, leaving just enough light to see by, and the projector hums to life. The bulb inside is bright and hot, a concentrated beam of light that shoots across the room and hits the screen. The first slide drops into place with a mechanical clunk, and suddenly the screen is filled with colour. A frozen moment from last summer's vacation, the family standing in front of a national park sign, squinting into the sun. The person operating the projector presses the advance button, and the carousel rotates with a satisfying click, 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 the next slide dropping into position. The image changes, a campsite, a lake, your father holding up a fish, your mother laughing at something off camera. Each slide gets a few seconds of attention, sometimes longer if someone asks a question or points out a detail, and then the carousel advances again. The images are vivid, the colours richer than regular photographs, glowing from within. The screen magnifies them, making the details larger than life, the texture of a sweater, the leaves on a tree, the expression on a face. You see things you did not notice when the photo was taken, small moments preserved and enlarged, made significant by the act of projection. The slideshow has a rhythm, click, a new image, a comment or a laugh, click, another image, a story about what happened just before or after the photo was taken, click. The carousel rotates, the projector hums, the room fills with the quiet sounds of a family remembering together. Sometimes a slide gets stuck, jamming in the carousel, and someone has to stop the show to fix it, carefully removing the carousel and prying the stuck slide free. Sometimes the focus drifts, and someone adjusts the lens, turning the ring until the image sharpens. Sometimes the projector overheats, and you have to pause, let it cool down, wait for the fan to catch up. But these interruptions are part of the experience. They slow things down, create space for conversation, remind everyone that this is not a passive activity but a shared event, something that requires attention and participation. And when the last slide clicks through, when the screen goes white with just the projector's light, someone turns the lamps back on and the room returns to normal. The carousel gets removed, the slides filed away in a box, the projector returned to the closet. But the memories linger, refreshed and vivid, stories retold, moments relived, the past made present for a little while. The electric knife sits in a drawer, a strange appliance with two serrated blades that vibrate rapidly when you press the trigger. It comes out for holiday dinners, for carving, turkey or roast beef, slicing through meat with a mechanical hum that feels futuristic and slightly dangerous. When it works, it is magic. When it does not, someone reaches for the regular knife. The knife looks like something from a science fiction movie, a sleek handle with two parallel blades that fit together, locked in place with a small button or clip. The blades are thin and flexible, made of stainless steel with a serrated edge that resembles a saw. When you plug it in and press the trigger, the blades move back and forth in rapid oscillation, creating a cutting action that is fast and efficient and unlike anything a regular knife can do. The electric knife is saved for special occasions, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, any meal that involves a large piece of meat that needs to be carved at the table. Your father takes it from the drawer, assembles the blades, and plugs it in, the cord stretching across the counter or trailing to an outlet near the dining room. He tests it, first pressing the trigger, listening to the hum, making sure everything's working properly. Then comes the carving. He positions the turkey or roast on the cutting board, holds it steady with a large fork and brings the electric knife to the surface. The blades bite into the meat with almost no pressure, gliding through with a smooth, effortless motion. Thin, even slices fall away, stacking up on the platter, each one perfect, uniform. The kind of precision that is hard to achieve with a regular knife. The sound is distinctive, a high-pitched whir that fills the kitchen, mechanical and steady. It is the sound of efficiency, of technology making a task easier, of progress in the form of a kitchen appliance. Everyone watches, fascinated as the knife does its work, the meat yielding under the vibrating blades, the pile of slices growing. But the electric knife is not foolproof. Sometimes the blades jam, catching on a bone or a tough piece of cartilage, and the motor strains, the humming turning into a grinding sound. Your father has to stop, pull the knife back, reposition it, try again. Sometimes the blades come loose, separating in the middle of a cut, and he has to reassemble them, making sure they lock into place securely. And there is always the danger. The blades are sharp and they move fast, and it is easy to imagine what would happen if you got too close. Your father handles the knife carefully, keeping his fingers away from the blades, always aware of where the cord is, making sure no one bumps into him while he is carving. When the carving is done, the electric knife gets disassembled, the blades removed and washed by hand, the handle wiped down and returned to the drawer. It sits there for months, waiting for the next holiday, the next big meal, the next moment when its particular skills are needed. Some families use the electric knife for other things too, slicing bread, cutting foam for craft projects, even trimming hedges in a pinch. The versatility is part of its appeal. The idea that this one tool can do so many different tasks, that it is worth the drawer space and the occasional maintenance. But mostly the electric knife is a symbol. It represents the optimism of the era, the belief that technology can improve everyday life, that there is a gadget for every task, that the future is full of conveniences waiting to be discovered. And on those holidays, when it comes out of the drawer and hums to life, it delivers on that promise, making the meal a little easier, a little more impressive, a little more modern. The beaded curtain hangs in the doorway between the kitchen and the hallway, strings of wooden beads in earth tones clicking softly when you pass through. It is decorative, functional, a gentle divider that lets air flow but marks the boundary between spaces. You run your fingers through it as you walk, feeling the beads cascade around you. The curtain is made of dozens of vertical strings, each one strung, with wooden beads in varying sizes and colours, brown, tan, orange, cream, sometimes a few painted in bright accent colours, red or turquoise or gold. The beads are smooth and rounded, polished so they catch the light, and they are separated by small knots or spaces that keep them from sliding together. At the top, the strings are attached to a wooden dowel or a metal rod that fits across the doorway, held in place with small brackets screwed into the frame. The curtain hangs straight when it is still, the strings forming a vertical pattern, but the slightest breeze sets it swaying, the beads clicking against each other in a soft rhythmic sound. Walking through the beaded curtain is an experience. You push forward, and the strings part around you, the beads brushing against your arms, your shoulders, your face. They are cool and smooth, and they make a noise as they fall back into place, a gentle clatter that announces your passage. It is impossible to move through the curtain silently. Everyone in the house knows when someone has just walked between rooms. The curtain serves a purpose beyond decoration. It marks the boundary between the kitchen and the rest of the house, creating a sense of separation without blocking the view or the airflow. You can see through it, the shapes and colours blurred by the strings, but distinct enough to know what is happening on the other side. It offers a kind of privacy that is not complete, a suggestion of division rather than a barrier. Children love the beaded curtain. They run through it repeatedly, laughing at the sound, feeling the beads cascade over them. They stand in the middle of it, letting the strings surround them, pretending they are in a forest or a waterfall. They count the beads, trace the patterns, invent games that involve passing through without making a sound, which is impossible but fun to attempt. The curtain also collects things. Dust over time settles on the beads and the strings, dulling the colours slightly. Grease from the kitchen drifts through the doorway, leaving a faint film that has to be wiped away occasionally. The beads themselves sometimes crack or chip, and the strings fray, requiring repairs or replacements. Cleaning the beaded curtain is a chore. You take it down, laying it carefully on a towel and wipe each string, each bead with a damp cloth. Or you take it outside, hang it from a tree branch or a clothesline, and spray it with a hose, letting the water wash away the grime. The beads click and clatter in the spray, sounding like rain, and when they dry they shine again, looking almost new. The curtain also carries a certain vibe, a distinctly 1970s aesthetic that speaks to the era's fascination with natural materials, earthy colours, and bohemian style. It suggests a laid-back household, a family that is not too formal, that embraces a bit of whimsy and individuality. It is the kind of thing that shows up in magazines and on television, visual shorthand for a certain kind of home. And even though it is just a curtain, just strings of beads hanging in a doorway, it has a presence. It changes the feel of the house, adds a layer of texture and sound, makes moving from room to room a small sensory experience. And years later, when beaded curtains fall out of fashion and get taken down, you will remember the sound they made, the way they felt, the way they turned an ordinary doorway into something slightly magical. The plastic covers everything, the couch, the armchairs, sometimes even the lampshades. They are clear, crinkly, slightly sticky in summer, designed to protect the furniture from spills, stains, wear. Sitting on them is uncomfortable, the plastic squeaking beneath you, but they preserve the fabric underneath in perfect, untouched condition. The covers come in heavy rolls, thick sheets of vinyl that drape over the furniture and tuck into the cushions. They are fitted carefully, smooth flat to eliminate wrinkles, secured with tacks or elastic straps that hook under the frame. Some covers are completely clear, showing the fabric pattern beneath. Others have a slight tint or texture, a quilted surface that adds a bit of grip and reduces the slippery feeling. The logic behind the plastic is preservation. The furniture underneath is expensive, an investment, something that is meant to last for years. The plastic protects it from daily wear, from the oils on skin, from spilled drinks and dropped food, from the slow accumulation of dirt and stains that comes with regular use. The idea is that when guests come over, when the holidays arrive, you can remove the plastic and reveal the pristine furniture underneath, looking as new as the day it was delivered. But living with plastic-covered furniture is its own experience. In winter, the plastic is cold, stiff, unyielding. You sit down and feel the chill through your clothes, and it takes a while for your body heat to warm the surface. In summer, the plastic is worse. It traps heat and moisture, making you sweat, making your skin stick to the surface. When you stand up, you peel away from it, your legs making a sound like tape being pulled off a roll. The plastic also squeaks. Every movement, every shift in position produces a crinkle or a squeak, a constant soundtrack of small noises that make it impossible to sit quietly. Watching television becomes an exercise in stillness, because every time you adjust yourself, the plastic announces it to the entire room. Guests perch carefully on the edge of the couch, trying to minimize the noise, hyper-aware of the surface beneath them. Children hate the plastic covers. They are slippery, making it hard to get comfortable, and they are noisy, ruining any attempt at stealth or subtlety. Trying to lie down on a plastic-covered couch is an exercise in frustration. The the surface too slick to stay in place, your body sliding slowly toward the edge no matter how you position yourself. But the plastic does its job. The furniture underneath stays protected, untouched, preserved in a kind of stasis. When the covers are finally removed years later, the fabric is bright and clean, the colours unfaded, the texture still plush. It looks brand new, as though it has never been used, because in a sense, it has not. The plastic took all the abuse, all the wear, leaving the furniture itself unscathed. Some families never remove the plastic. It becomes a permanent fixture, a part of the furniture, accepted and adapted to. Other families take it off for special occasions, revealing the real furniture beneath like unwrapping a gift, then putting the plastic back on as soon as the guests leave. The plastic represents a tension between using something and preserving it, between enjoying what you have and protecting it for some future moment that may or may not ever come. And there is something poignant about that tension. The furniture is beautiful, comfortable, chosen with care, but it is also too precious to use, too valuable to risk. So it sits, covered in plastic, waiting to be revealed, waiting for the right moment, the right occasion, the right reason to finally be itself. The plastic-covered couch becomes a symbol of a certain mindset, a certain era, a time when people believed that the things they owned should be protected, preserved, kept perfect. It is a choice that makes sense on paper, but feels strange in practice, a sacrifice of comfort for the sake of longevity, a decision to live with less so that someday, somehow, there might be more. And sitting on that couch, feeling the plastic crinkle and squeak beneath you, you understand that this is what the 1970s looked like for many families. Not just the bold colours and the shag carpets and the wood panelling, but the plastic covers too, the small compromises, the careful preservation, the constant negotiation between having and keeping, between using and saving, between living now and hoping for later. The CB radio sits on a shelf in the den, a rectangular box with knobs, switches and a coiled microphone hanging from a hook on the side. It crackles with static and distant voices, truckers and hobbyists calling out their handles, asking for someone to come back with a signal check. Your father has his own handle, something like Roadrunner or Nighthawk, and when he picks up that microphone, he becomes part of an invisible community stretching across highways and neighbourhoods. The radio itself is utilitarian, black or silver metal with a small speaker grill on the front. The channel selector is a knob or a dial, clicking through 40 channels, each one a different frequency where conversations happen in real time. The volume knob controls how loud the voices come through, and the squelch knob eliminates the static when no one is transmitting. There are meters too, small needles that bounce when someone is talking, showing the strength of the signal. Setting up, the CB requires an antenna, usually mounted on the roof or in the attic, a long metal rod that reaches toward the sky. The coaxial cable runs down through the house, snaking through walls or along baseboards, connecting the antenna to the radio. Getting the antenna positioned correctly, tuned to the right frequency, is an art form that involves standing on ladders, adjusting angles, and asking someone inside to check the signal strength. When the radio is on, it fills the room with sound. Voices emerge from the static, some clear and strong, others weak and distant, fading in and out as the person moves or the weather changes. The language is its own dialect, full of codes and slang. 10-4 means I understand. What is your 20 means where are you? Smokey refers to police. A good buddy is anyone friendly on the other end. Your father picks up the microphone, presses the button on the side and speaks into it, his voice formal and slightly performative. Breaker 19, this is Nighthawk, looking for a radio check. He releases the button and waits, the static hissing softly, and then a voice crackles back. 10-4, Nighthawk, you're coming in loud and clear. He smiles, satisfied, and settles into a conversation about weather, traffic, whatever comes to mind. The CB radio is both practical and social. Truckers use it to share information about road conditions, speed traps, accidents ahead. Neighbours use it to chat, to stay connected, to pass the time during long evenings. Emergency services sometimes monitor CB channels, listening for calls for help. It is a network, a community, a way to reach out and touch someone without ever seeing their face. Children are fascinated by the CB radio. They listen to the voices, trying to imagine who is speaking, where they are, what they look like. They learn the codes, the handles, the etiquette of waiting your turn and not interrupting. Sometimes your father lets you hold the microphone, press the button, speak into it nervously while he coaches you through your first transmission. Your voice sounds strange coming back through the speaker, tinny and distant, like it belongs to someone else. The CB radio also has a darker side. Not everyone on the airwaves is friendly. Some people hog the channels, talking endlessly, refusing to let others in. Some use profanity or harass other users, hiding behind their handles and the anonymity of the radio waves. Your father changes channels when this happens, shaking his head, muttering about bad actors ruining it for everyone. But mostly the CB radio is a source of connection. On long drives, your father keeps it on, listening to the chatter, occasionally jumping in to ask about traffic or weather. At home, it sits on the shelf, sometimes silent, sometimes alive with voices, a reminder that there are people out there, just beyond the walls of your house, living their lives and willing to talk if you just pick up the microphone and reach out. And late at night, when the house is quiet and the channels are less crowded, the CB radio takes on an almost magical quality. Voices drift in from far away, signals bouncing off the atmosphere, travelling hundreds of miles. You hear someone in another state, another time zone, and for a moment you are connected. Two strangers sharing the same frequency, the same night, the same strange, crackling medium that turns loneliness into conversation. The Tupperware Jello ring sits in the refrigerator, a specialised container designed for one purpose: to hold a circular gelatin mould in perfect suspended animation until it is time to serve. It is avocado green or sunshine yellow, with a tight sealing lid that burps when pressed, and a centre post that creates the signature hole in the middle of the Jello. When your mother makes her famous lime Jello salad with cottage cheese and pineapple, this is where it lives until dessert. The ring mould is larger than most Tupperware containers, taking up significant real estate on the refrigerator shelf. It is wide and shallow, designed to create a flat, even ring that unmoulds cleanly and sits impressively on a serving plate. The centre post is removable, making it easier to clean, and the lid fits so precisely that you can turn the whole thing upside down without a single drop leaking out. Making Jello in the Tupperware ring is a production. Your mother mixes the gelatin according to the package, then pours a thin layer into the bottom of the mould and refrigerates it until it is tacky. Then she arranges the add-ins: canned pineapple chunks, shredded carrots, miniature marshmallows, cottage cheese, pressing them gently into the partially set Jello so they stay in place. She pours the rest of the mixture over the top, seals the lid with a satisfying burp, and slides it carefully onto a refrigerator shelf where it will set for hours. The waiting is agonizing. You open the refrigerator periodically to check on it, resisting the urge to poke the surface and test its firmness. Your mother catches you and shoos you away, warning that if you disturb it too much it will not set properly and all her work will be ruined. You close the door reluctantly, imagining the Jello slowly solidifying inside its avocado green fortress. When it's time to serve, the unmoulding ritual begins. Your mother fills the sink with warm water, just enough to come halfway up the sides of the mould. She dips the Tupperware in for 10 seconds, counting carefully, then removes it and wipes the bottom dry. She places a serving plate over the top, holds both firmly, and flips the whole thing over in one confident motion. She gives the mould a gentle shake, a light tap, and listens for the soft sucking sound that means the Jello has released. She lifts the Tupperware away slowly, revealing the ring beneath. It wobbles slightly, glistening under the kitchen lights, the chunks of pineapple and cottage cheese visible through the translucent green gelatin. The centre hole is perfect, ready to be filled with whipped cream or fruit salad, or left empty as a decorative element. The ring sits on the plate like a crown, a centerpiece that announces effort, creativity, and a commitment to presentation. The Tupperware Jello ring is not just for Jello, though that is its primary purpose. Some families use it for moulded salads made with mayonnaise and vegetables, or for frozen desserts that need a specific shape. The ring is versatile, adaptable, a piece of specialized equipment that earns its place in the cabinet through sheer usefulness. Cleaning the Jello ring requires patience. The gelatin leaves a residue that clings to the plastic, and the center post has crevices that trap bits of pineapple or marshmallow. Your mother fills it with hot soapy water, lets it soak, then scrubs it carefully with a sponge, making sure to get every corner, every groove. When it's clean, she dries it thoroughly and returns it to the cabinet nested with the other, Tupperware, ready for the next occasion. The Tupperware Jello ring represents a specific kind of domesticity, a time when presentation mattered, when serving food in an attractive way was a sign of care and competence. It is not enough to simply make Jello. You have to mould it, shape it, turn it into something beautiful. And the Tupperware Jello ring, with its bright colour and its burping lid and its perfect circular form, is the tool that makes that transformation possible. The brass magazine rack sits beside your father's chair, a wire frame with curved sides that holds a neat stack of publications. It gleams softly in the lamplight, filled with the current week's issues of Life, Time, TV Guide, National Geographic, maybe a few copies of Reader's Digest. The magazines are arranged by size, largest at the bottom, smallest at the top, creating a graduated tower of glossy covers and promising headlines. The rack itself is simple but elegant, made of brass or brass-plated metal that requires occasional polishing to maintain its shine. The wires are formed into decorative curves or geometric patterns, creating a structure that is functional but also ornamental, a piece that looks good even when it's empty. The base is wide and stable, designed to hold a substantial stack without tipping over. The magazines arrive throughout the week, delivered by mail, tossed onto the porch by the paperboy, picked up at the grocery store checkout. They accumulate in the rack, each one a window into the world beyond your neighbourhood. Life brings photo essays of faraway places and important events. Time covers politics and current affairs with serious analysis. National Geographic offers glimpses of exotic cultures and natural wonders, its yellow border instantly recognisable. Your father reads the magazines in the evening, settling into his chair with a fresh issue and a drink from the cocktail cart. He flips through the pages slowly, reading some articles in full, skimming, others pausing at photographs that catch his eye. The magazines are substantial, printed on thick paper with high-quality images, designed to be kept and referenced, not discarded after a single reading. The magazine rack becomes a record of interests and priorities. The publications your family subscribes to say something about who you are, what you value, what you want to know about. Some families favour news and politics, others prefer home and garden magazines, craft publications, automotive journals. The rack holds them all, a curated collection that reflects the household's identity. Children are drawn to the magazine rack too, pulling out issues and flipping through them, looking at the pictures, reading the captions, absorbing information in fragments. National Geographic is especially popular, with its vivid photographs of animals and landscapes, its maps that fold out to reveal entire continents. You learn about the world through these magazines, about places you have never been and may never go, but that become real through the images and words on the page. The rack also holds newspapers, folded and stacked beneath the magazines. The daily paper, picked up from the driveway each morning, read over breakfast, then tucked into the rack for later reference. The Sunday paper, thick with sections and advertisements, too large to fit comfortably but wedged in anyway, its bulk making the rack sag slightly under the weight. Over time, the magazines pile up, the older issues migrating to the bottom, the newer ones stacked on top. Some get pulled out and saved, articles clipped and filed away, recipes torn out and taped into notebooks. Others get recycled, bundled up and taken to the curb, their moment of relevance past, their information absorbed or forgotten. But the magazine rack itself remains, a constant presence beside the chair, always ready to hold the next issue, the next story, the next piece of the world delivered to your living room. It is a small piece of furniture, easily overlooked, but it serves a vital function, organizing information, preserving knowledge, making it easy to reach for something to read without having to get up and search. And there is something comforting about the magazine rack, the way it sits there, solid and stable, holding the world in miniature. The brass catches the light. The magazines rustle when you pull one out, and for a little while you can sit in your chair and travel anywhere, learn anything, see places and people and ideas that exist far beyond the walls of your home, all because someone thought to create a simple wire rack that could hold them all together. The blender sits on the kitchen counter, a heavy appliance in harvest gold with a glass pitcher and a base that sounds like a small aircraft taking off. It makes smoothies before anyone calls them smoothies, pulverizes ice for cocktails, turns tomatoes into sauce, and occasionally terrifies the family dog with its grinding roar. When your mother presses the highest button, the whole kitchen vibrates with industrial determination. The base is substantial, made of metal or heavy-duty plastic, painted in that distinctive 70s gold that coordinates with the refrigerator and the stove. It houses the motor, a powerful mechanism that spins the blades at multiple speeds, each one controlled by a row of buttons on the front. Stir, chop, mix, puree, liquefy. The buttons are chrome or plastic, sometimes with little symbols instead of words, and they click satisfyingly when pressed. The pitcher is glass, heavy and thick, with measurement marks etched into the side. It tapers toward the bottom where it meets the blade assembly, a four-pointed star of stainless steel that spins so fast it becomes a blur. The lid fits on top with a removable center cap, allowing you to add ingredients while the blender is running, though this often results in splatter and requires careful timing. Your mother uses the blender constantly. For breakfast, she makes orange juice from frozen concentrate, dumping the icy cylinder into the pitcher, adding water and blending until it is smooth and frothy. For lunch, she purees soup, transforming chunky vegetables into velvety cream. For dinner parties, she crushes ice for cocktails, the blender roaring and rattling as the cubes shatter into snow. The noise is legendary. When the blender is on high, conversation stops. The television gets turned up. The dog retreats to another room. The motor strains and whines, the blades chopping and grinding, the whole appliance shaking slightly despite its weight. You can hear it from anywhere in the house, a signal that something is being made, that the kitchen is alive with activity. The blender also makes frozen drinks, margaritas and daiquiris, turning ice and alcohol and fruit into slushy concoctions that feel festive and slightly exotic. Your father adds the ingredients, measuring carefully, then blends them until they reach the perfect consistency, thick enough to hold a shape but thin enough to pour. He serves them in special glasses with salted rims, little paper umbrellas stuck in the top, and everyone agrees that the blender was worth the investment. But the blender is not infallible. Sometimes ingredients get stuck, creating a cavern around the blades while the rest of the mixture remains untouched. Your mother has to stop the blender, remove the lid, and use a spatula to scrape down the sides, pushing everything back toward the center. Sometimes the blades jam on ice or frozen fruit, the motor struggling, emitting a burning smell that suggests you should probably stop before something breaks. Cleaning the blender is its own challenge. The blade assembly unscrews from the bottom of the pitcher, revealing sharp edges that require careful handling. Your mother washes everything by hand, scrubbing the pitcher inside and out, rinsing the blades, making sure no residue remains. The gasket that seals the blade, assembly to the pitcher, is small and easy to lose, and more than one family has learned this the hard way when the blender suddenly starts leaking all over the counter. The Harvest Gold blender becomes a symbol of kitchen capability, a sign that your family can make things, create things, transform raw ingredients into finished products. It sits on the counter between uses, a bright, solid presence, its glass pitcher reflecting the light, its buttons waiting to be pressed. And when it roars to life, when the kitchen fills with that familiar grinding sound, you know that something is being made, something is being created, and the blender is doing the heavy lifting. So tonight, as you settle deeper into your blankets, the soft kind, not the crinkly, plastic-covered kind that announced every movement, let's take a breath and look back at the textured, colourful, slightly impractical world you just walked through. You woke up in a home filled with rotary phones and shag carpeting, with avocado green appliances and wood panelling that absorbed more light than it reflected. You lived with fondue sets that turned dinner into theatre, with TV guides that mapped out your entire week, with encyclopedias that required you to get up and search for answers instead of asking a screen. For all its quirks, you saw how much of that world was built on a kind of optimism, a belief that the future would be better, brighter, more convenient. That plastic moulds could make Jello into art. That macrame could bring nature indoors. That a telephone table with a little swivelling seat was all you needed to stay connected to everyone who mattered. These were not just objects. They were expressions of hope, of effort, of families trying to build something comfortable and lasting in a decade that felt like it was hurtling toward tomorrow. And for all the things we might laugh about now, the popcorn ceilings and the Harvest Gold appliances and the furniture wrapped in protective plastic, there was something beautiful in that world too. A slower pace, a tangible quality to daily life, the weight of a vinyl record in your hands, the ritual of looking something up in an encyclopedia, the sound of beads clicking in a doorway, the knowledge that when the phone rang, someone had made the effort to reach you, to connect, to be present in a way that required more than typing a few words into a screen. So as you drift towards sleep in your warm, quiet room, maybe take a moment to appreciate the things we have now that they did not. The convenience, the speed, the access to infinite information and entertainment. But also remember what was lost along the way. The craftsmanship, the patience, the acceptance that some things took time, and that was okay. That some things required effort, and that made them more valuable. Tonight, whisper a soft thank you to every family who lived in those earth-toned, shag-carpeted, wood-panelled homes, the ones who turned dials instead of tapping, screens, the ones who waited for their favourite shows instead of binging them, the ones who made things by hand, crocheting afghans and tying macrame knots, because store-bought was fine but homemade was better. The ones who covered their furniture in plastic not because they were strange, but because they believed what they had was worth protecting. Because the 1970s may look dated now, with its bold colours and its quirky gadgets, and its deeply impractical design choices. but living it was real, human, and wonderfully tactile. And now, as your eyes grow heavy and your breathing softens, let that reminder carry you gently towards sleep, that every era has its beauty, its strangeness, its particular way of being home. And the homes we remember, with all their odd textures and outdated appliances, are the ones that shaped us, the ones that held us, the ones that made us who we are. Good night, and may your dreams be as warm as shag carpeting and as comforting as an afghan, made by someone who loved you.